why did you decide to become a chemical engineer? Why not mechanical, electrical? What was
Okay, so that's an easy question to answer. So I went to a special high school in New York City, in Brooklyn Tech. And in Brooklyn Tech was one of those places where you could major in an engineering discipline in your later years. But as a freshman, everyone took these core classes. And one of those core classes was machine shop. And so at the second semester, so freshman year, when I was taking machine shop, the only way I could get a passing grade of D in the machine shop was if I promised to take the chemical engineering track so that he would never have to have me in a class again. And then after that, I realized that of all the disciplines, because then it was interacting with kids who were in the electrical engineering, mechanical, civil, aeronautical. We had a plane on the top of the building that people would take apart and put together every year. So when I went and started university, basically is chemical engineering is the discipline, at least then classically, is that kind of aggregated a little bit of everything. And then tied it all up with a nice bow and knot, teaching you process design and economics. So that not only do you learn that there are more than one Damn-Kohler number for studying reaction engineering, which mystifies chemists, but you also are able to figure out whether it's worthwhile optimizing it.
So can I say the reason is that you are my first gift that I'm asking this question, and all of them somehow said that becoming a chemical was part of the, I don't know, fate or something that they didn't plan first. So it seems that somehow it is valid for your story too, isn't it?
It's sort of, but except that the part I left out is that when I was 8 years old, I got my first Gilbert chemistry set.
Oh, okay. So no, I mean you had the background. Now I have.
I liked mixing things together, and I loved watching my mother cook.
Oh,
and she'd always give me things that I could mix together and see whether they would do something. So I like to see what happened when I mixed things together. So the idea of chemistry was there, but the engineering aspect of it, which is going beyond the sort of mixing things together, see what happens, and characterizing it with analysis, as in addition to synthesis, that's the alluring part, which is, again, perspective-wise, one of the things that bothered me starting 20 years ago when I found that so much of the chemical engineering profession, professional people, their work in academia was moving totally towards synthesis.
I see.
Making new things. And we were not progressing. People were feeling that it was old to do analysis.
I see.
And so that again was one of the things that I felt was, the pendulum had swung too far in the other direction. Now people are coming back to doing more analysis, but the analysis is more driven by high performance computing. So you actually can do more, have higher fidelity numerical experiments.
I see. Good. My second question is based on your background. I mean, you spent 14 years in industry, as a leader manager, and also you have a really solid, exciting background as a faculty. When I talk to the industry people, they think that the real research actually happens in their section, not in academia. But when I talk to our environment faculty, I see that no, they think the real research happens in academia. The best person who can compare these two, what is your idea?
It's not one or the other. It is both. They have different objectives. In industry, you're much more likely to hear someone say, what is the question you are trying to answer? Mm-hmm. In academia, people tend to take the perspective of, it's new and it's pushing the envelope, right? And the hypothesis rarely goes beyond, can I do this?
I see.
Right? Whereas, again, we come back to my sort of knee-jerk reaction to what started 20, 25 years ago is analysis says, what do I think will happen when I do this? What is the real fundamental thing that I can, if I make a widget, what does that widget teach me? So if I want to make a widget in industry, it's because I think I can sell that widget and I can make it economically. So one of my good friends and colleagues at W.L. Gore, he has spent a lot of years looking at membrane distillation. And he has done a lot of that, can't be published, but he talks about in meetings and has lots of, quantitative data. And he looks at the idea, what's the value proposition for a membrane in membrane distillation? Is there a value proposition for it? And so far, at least as far as the product his company makes, he hasn't found a value proposition for their membrane in it.
I see.
I go a step further and I say, I have had this discussion with Cam Sircar many times. I says, why bother with membrane distillation? Why is it better than regular distillation?
I see.
What's the value proposition? I know my answer to him is, and they say blah, 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 right? And I say, well, you could do that without membranes. You could do that with metal, and you could do that with anything.
Sure.
And so the point is, it comes down to is that membranes give you a platform for creating surface area that's defined and not subject to process conditions.
I see.
That's your fundamental value proposition when you do research in membranes. Figure out what is the lowest cost way you can create surface area that then adds on these other properties. So when I teach you mentioned earlier the NAMS workshop on measurement methods for membranes. So now, there's a bunch of people now that are working with me, Ryan Lively and Uwe Buscher from W.L. Gore, and that is they add a lot more value to it. But we still start off with, why do I want to measure anything? And then figure out, when I get that piece of information, what will it teach me that I can act upon? As opposed to, we see lots of publications that have, it's like a gravitational body, more and more characterization. What has any of that really taught me that was worth the money I spent getting that number? How can I act upon it? So that's the important difference between industry and academia. In one sense, is that industry focus on the value proposition. Academia needs to focus on a hypothesis-driven research.
Perfect.